Hi everyone. Today Salesforce Development Day 32. Today's agenda is, we'll quickly go through the previous session and we'll talk about the execution, like when we have a validation and a trigger, which one is going to execute the first one, and then we will see the trigger use cases. So today most of our class is on the scenario based. All the trigger scenario based we will see. And then we'll have a conclusion, trailhead links. So the execution, so let's see. The last class we have discussed about the creating the trigger on the lead. So the last requirement is whenever the user is updating, industry equal to banking, then we wanted to place annual revenue is some amount finance, some amount insurance. So based on the industry, we are updating the annual revenue. So this is the trigger which we have written on the lead. Now let's assume that on the lead level, let's go to the lead. So on lead, I already have a trigger where it is updating the annual revenue. Similarly, if I go to the object level, in the object level, we have a validation rule. So validation rule is if annual revenue is blank, throw an error message. That means if I'm creating any lead, and if I do not specify the annual revenue, throw an error message, validation error message. This validation error is active. So right now on the lead level, I have a validation as well as the trigger. Trigger is a before insert, before update. Before insert and a before update. Now on the lead level, we have a trigger. Trigger is before insert. Trigger is before insert, before update. And as well as I have a validation. Validation is, we know that it is going to execute on the before insert, before update. Validation also executes on the before insert and before update. Now the question here is, validation is also checking the same field, annual revenue. Annual revenue on the lead, it is checking. Similarly, trigger also, it is checking the industry, based on the industry, updating the annual revenue. Now the question is, when I have this kind of a scenario, because annual revenue field is reported in the validation rule, annual revenue is reported in the trigger, and both are going to execute on the before insert. Both have a scenario is on the trigger level, before insert, before update. Even validation also, validation executes on the before insert and before update. Now, in this scenario, which one does it execute? Does the trigger execute first or does validation throw first? If validation throw first, then it will not update the annual revenue, right? Let's go ahead and see this scenario. Now, let me create new record. Let's say that here I'm checking the trigger and validation. Now I'm just giving the company here, IBM, and I'm giving the industry. For example, I'm giving the industry as a finance. I'm giving the industry as a finance. Now, I'm not specifying the annual revenue. I'm not specifying the annual revenue. Annual revenue is very key point because validation rule is checking if it is a null. If it is checking if it is a null, throw an error, right? And in the trigger, based on the industry, update the annual revenue. Now, right now, I'm not entering the annual revenue here. I'll just click on a save. As soon as I click on a save, let's see which one gets executed first. Click on a save. Now it is executing it. What happened? It executed and it updated the annual revenue here. So the execution of the validation rule on the trigger. Whenever I have a same field is report in the validation rule, same field is report in the trigger. In that scenario, the first execution is trigger. First, it will execute the trigger, which is a before insert and before update. Which is a before insert and before update. The first, it will execute the trigger. Then it is going to execute the validation rule. Then it is going to execute the validation rule. And after that, we have a after insert, after update. Now, this is just a scenario which I am giving it. In case if we have any same field is triggered, same field is reported in multiple places. In that case, how we are going to, the logic, how it is going to be executed. So upon firing the trigger, if the record contains the validation rule and before trigger is nothing but if I have a trigger event is before insert and before update on the same field, then it will fire the before insert first, then it will fire the validation rule. Now we will see in depth how the trigger execution, but right now as we covered the validation rule and the trigger, so that is the reason I covered here. In case if you feel that I report the same field in the validation, same field in the trigger, how the execution is happening. So this is how the execution happens. This is how execution happens, but we will see the order of execution later. Before that, we need to see some more points. Now, next one, we'll see a use case. Now, before moving on, any questions on that? Now, let's move on to the use case. Use case is create a trigger on the account object to prevent the deletion of active account records. Deletion of active account records. Now, what is this? This is on account object. Now here, object, event. What is the object that I'm going to create? A trigger here.
Account.
Account object. Now, what is the scenario? It says is to prevent the deletion of the active account record. That means if you go to the account, in the account, we have a field called active. So let's go to the detail section and there is a checkbox we have a pick list field called active. Whenever we see that active equal to yes, then we should not allow the user to delete. If they are trying to delete this record, we should not allow because the account is active. So for that is the scenario or that is the use case. what type of a event that I'm going to use it?
Before delete.
What type of event?
Before delete.
Undelete.
Before delete. We are going to check the event, which is a before delete. Now let's go ahead and implement the trigger. Now we are creating on the account. So on the account, I already have a trigger. On the account, I already have a trigger. Now this time, for this scenario, whatever the scenario we are seeing it, for this, the trigger event is before delete. So what I'll do is, I'll use a before delete. I'll use a before delete. As I already have a trigger per object, best practice is to create a only one trigger. So as I already have a trigger, that trigger I'm modifying it. So I'm adding the latest one is called before delete. Now for this before delete, that means if my context variables are if trigger dot is before and trigger dot is trigger dot is before trigger dot is delete. If it is a before delete, that means I have here the event is here before delete and the context variables are is before and is delete. Is before and is delete. Now here I need to check what before deleting it, I need to check the value. What value I need to check? Account active value. If it is a yes, we should not allow the user to delete. In that case, the first thing I need to look through the account. Now, for this account, which context variable do I use it? Which trigger context do I use it?
Trigger dot old.
Trigger dot old. Because before deleting it, okay, before deleting it, I will be having the data which is sitting into the trigger dot old. Trigger dot old. In that scenario, I need to look through that. Then I'll check if account dot active underscore C equal to, if it is a yes, if it is a yes, then I wanted to prevent the deleting record. That means I wanted to show the error. On the account level, I wanted to show the error. Add error. Add error. So let's say that not or you are not authorized to delete. You are not authorized to delete active account. Active account. Now this is the scenario. Now let's go ahead and see that. Now right now I have an active. Whenever I'm trying to delete this record, whenever I'm trying to delete this record, now it should throw an error message. Why it is not throwing an error message? Value is deleted. Did I deactivate the account trigger? Let's go ahead and check. Account triggers. Account trigger. Now we have deactivated the trigger. Let me activate it. Click on is active, click on save. Okay, now let's go to the support. And what is the active field? Here we have a active field is yes. Now let's delete this account. Yes, I wanted to delete this account. Now it says that you are not authorized to delete the active account. You are not authorized to delete the active account. So this is the error message it is giving. If it is a active equal to no. If it is a active equal to no, account number SB1002, click on save. Right now, active equal to, it has some records. Now let me go to the other one. There is a WB here. This also has an account. Let me take the account which does not have the account contact, because I need those records later. Okay, so this record does not have a contact. So what I'll do, active equal to yes. So if I try to delete this record, it is going to throw me an error saying that you are not authorized. Active equal to yes, right? It was. Okay, let's click on delete. Delete. Why it is deleting it? Did somebody deactivate it again? It is inactive. Why it is happening?
You made a change, right? Maybe that's the reason.
Okay. So let me check. Right now it is active. Right now it is active. Let me open another one. Now this one has no contacts. That should be fine. Active equal to yes. Click on delete. Now it says that you are not authorized to delete the active account. Now let's go back and change the active equal to no and click on save. Salesforce.com. Click on save. Now right now it is active equal to no. Now if I try to delete, it should delete. Now that's the use case for the preventing the deletion of active account. Let's see the another use case. Okay, before seeing the another use case, let homework. Create a trigger on the position object to make sure the minimum pay field and contact number field are required. So on the position object, whenever you are creating or updating it, make sure there is a value in the minimum pay field and contact number. Minimum pay field and the contact number. Second one, create a trigger on the lead object to make sure the lead address should be mandatory. That means on the lead level, we have a address. If you go to the lead object, let's go to the lead and click on the lead. If you go to the detail section, we have a address. So this is the address. This is the address on the lead level. So the scenario here is lead address should be mandatory. That means street, city, state, postal code, country, everything is mandatory. If you miss even one field also, it should throw an error. Like you have entered the street, but you have not entered the city, should throw an error. You have entered all the values except the country, it should throw an error. So it has to cross verify all the fields. And
Ma'am, in order to throw error, like we need to use add error method, right?
yes,
Okay.
create a trigger on the case object to make sure each case record should be associated with account and contact. That means whenever you are creating a case, for example, I'm creating a new case. While creating the case, usually the account number and the contact name both are not mandatory. Both are not mandatory fields. Now, the trigger, we need to implement a trigger whenever we are creating or updating a case. The account and contact name should be mandatory. And fourth one, create a trigger on the contact object to make sure each contact record should be associated with the account. Even on the contact object, whenever you are creating the contact object, let's go to the contact object. Whenever you are creating a contact object, in the contact object, the account field is not mandatory. Account lookup field is not mandatory. So we have an account lookup. This is not a mandatory. Now we need to implement a logic in the trigger. Whenever we are creating or updating the contact, the account should be, lookup account should be mandatory. These are the 4 homework. And let's move on. Another use case. Now let's create a trigger on the hiring manager object to maintain the uniqueness of a record based on the hiring manager name and contact number combination. Now that means we have a hiring manager record. Now in the hiring manager record, now for example, let me open this HR details. HR details. So simply I'll clone it. I'll clone and I'll create a new one. Click on submit, save. Again, I'll clone the same data. I'll clone it and click on save. Similarly, I'll do another one, click on a clone and then click on a save. Now, hiring manager, click on hiring manager. Now, if you see here, all these records are duplicate. All these records are duplicates. The contact number is same. The contact number is same and the hiring manager is same. So all the values are same. All the values are same. Now this is a duplication of record. I'm creating a same record multiple times with the same hiring manager name, with the same contact. Now, usually in the real time, duplication of records is not possible. We should not do that. We should not do that. We need to avoid creating the duplicate records in the real time. Now, one of the way to avoid duplication is implementing a trigger. Now on the trigger, that means on the hiring manager object, to maintain the uniqueness of the record based on the hiring manager name and a contact name. That means if I see the hiring manager name and the contact name, if these two are same, if I see that any record that has a same details as a previous, then it should throw an error. Then it should throw an error. Now, in this scenario, what will, where will I be implementing a object? Where will I be implementing a trigger? On which object I'll be implementing a trigger?
Hiring manager.
Hiring manager. Now, what should be the event name?
Before create and update.
Before insert.
Before insert.
Before insert, before update. Now, this is the event. Before insert and before update. Now, let's go ahead and see that. Let me create a trigger. We are creating a trigger on hiring manager. Now, do we have a trigger on the hiring manager? Let's see. Hiring manager, let's open. Trigger. We do not have anything. So I'll be creating a new trigger, new Apex trigger. Now this is hiring manager trigger, HM trigger. Now S object is hiring manager. Hiring manager. Click on submit. Now trigger, hiring manager trigger, on the hiring manager before insert and before update. Before update. Let me write completely. Hiring manager. Now, as soon as I change the name here, let's see here whether it is changing it or not. So immediately what will happen is on top right now you are seeing HM trigger. I am changing the name of the class. When I change the name of the class, it doesn't change here. It doesn't changing here because trigger does not before update. It should allow because we are just changing the name of the trigger. Now here it is hiring manager trigger. If I change anything here, the class name also will be changed. Now if you search open resource, HM trigger. Let me refresh this. Now file, open, resource, HM trigger. I cannot see HM trigger, but if I search hiring manager trigger, I can see the hiring manager trigger. So class name can be changed, just updating this name. Now here I have a before insert, before update. For both the events, same logic needs to be executed. So what I'll do is if trigger dot is before, trigger dot is before, and trigger dot is insert or trigger dot is update. Trigger dot is update. Whenever this condition is true, for this context variable, whenever the return, the result is a true, then I'll be going inside. Now, for this scenario, before insert, before update, which context, trigger context do I use it? Trigger dot new, trigger dot old, trigger dot new map, trigger dot old map. Which one do I use it?
Old.
We are in
Trigger
a
dot new.
Yeah.
We are in a, yes, trigger dot new, because we are in a before insert, before update. We are in before insert, before update. But the before insert, before update, it has always to be trigger dot new. So trigger dot new.
That
Now,
means like whenever we use a before a event, then always like triggered, I mean, new context variable only.
no, I cannot say that, because whenever you do the before delete, that time we need to use the trigger dot old. Now here I am creating a record and I'm updating the record. Creating a record is nothing but there is no old. For the before insert, is there any old value? The record itself
No.
is not existed. Similarly, for update also, we have to take the trigger dot new. Whereas if it is a before delete, we need to use the trigger dot old. Now trigger dot new contains the collection of records, list of records. So definitely we have to loop through the hiring, the trigger. So hiring manager __ C HR record. HR record, then I'll be looping through this. Now, the scenario is duplicate records. The scenario is duplicate records. Now, the first thing is that I'm getting the new record. I'm getting the new record. Now, once I get the new record, I need to search existing record. I need to search existing record based on the hiring manager name and the contact number. That means search the existing record where hiring manager name equal to whatever the new record is there. So new record name, if it is the same, new record name and contact number equal to new record contact number. I need to search I need to take the latest one. And with the latest one, I need to check whether with the same details, is there an existing data or not. That means in order to check or in order to search in the existing record, only the way is in the trigger, I can do the SOQL query. So that means I'll be using the select ID from hiring manager where name equal to, I'll use the new record name and contact number equal to new record contact. And what it is giving the ID. So once I get the ID, I need to count the ID. Once I get the ID, I need to loop through that ID and count it. That means I need to check if I'm getting the 10 IDs. I need to loop through all the IDs and then I need to do count equal to count plus 1 till it is completed. Instead of doing this, what I can do is I can use here count. Instead of ID, I'll use count. Count is nothing but it will give the total count of it. For example, I wanted to know how many records are there in hiring manager. Usually what you do, you will search select ID from hiring manager. Hiring manager __ C. Let's click on execute. Now here you will see the count. But instead of that, let's say here count. I don't need the IDs also. I just need a count. Now what is happen here? It is just giving me the total number of rows. It's not giving the IDs because I'm not interested in the ID. I'm just interested in the count. If I say here select ID from hiring manager, what is happening? All the IDs it is giving. Now I need to look through all the IDs to check what is the count of it. Now instead of this, I can simply write select count from hiring manager, which will give me the count, Now let's go to the record. Now in this case, the count is integer, right? The output of the SQL query is integer. So I'll use integer. Let's take it as a hiring manager count, HR count equal to select count from hiring manager __ C, where name equal to, I'll say HR record dot name, and contact number equal to HR record dot contact number. HR record dot contact number. Now, next thing I'm going to cross verify is record count. If record, that is HR count, is greater than 0, that means there is a already existing record with the data, then I'm going to throw an error. HR record dot add error. Add error. Let's say that there is already a record in existing table. This record cannot be, since this record cannot be, this record cannot be acceptable. Cannot be acceptable. Now I'll save this. Something is wrong here. Schema hiring manager. Let's see. Now let's go back to the hiring manager record. Now I'll open the HR details itself. Now, if I try to clone and create the same data, clone is nothing but I'm creating a new record. Now, if I try to save this record, it says that there is already a record in existing table. This record cannot be acceptable. This record cannot be acceptable. Now, you can ask me the question that we are writing the SQL query within the for loop. As per the best practices, we should not be writing the SQL query within this. Now, this SQL query is not going to repeat, right? But in case if you still wanted to place it outside, if you still wanted to place it outside, then what you have to do is close your loop here. Close your loop, and you need to store the data. You need to store the data. That means you need to set up names and set up number. Now let's say that HR set of string, HR names equal to new set of string, and similarly set of string and contact number, HR number equal to new set of string. Now, what I'll do is I'll add all the HR names dot add HR record dot names dot name. Similarly, HR number dot add HR record dot contact number. Now, this set I'll give here instead of that, I'll give it here outside of the for loop. Now let's click on save. Now here HR record is not there. HR record is not there. So for this, you need to again loop through it. You need to again loop. So you need to have a ID again here. You need to store the ID. So what we'll do is instead of a set, I'll use here map. Instead of a set, I need a map because I cannot write a add error outside. I cannot write add error outside. I need to loop through the for loop, then I need to write it. Now instead of set, I'll use the map of ID comma string. Map of ID comma string HR names equal to new map of ID comma string. Map of ID comma string. Now this HR names dot put HR record comma ID dot ID comma names. Now in this case, HR names dot values. HR names dot values. Now that is what I'm getting the integer count. That is what I'm getting the integer count.
Swapna?
Yes,
Yeah, see where name it should be in, right? Because you're checking array of
yes,
values.
it should be in.
Yeah.
So we are checking the HR names value. Now here we are using the map. When we are using the map has a ID, the key and a values. So when I'm using the key and a values, now key has a HR ID and values has a name. Now in this case, I'll use a in condition. Similarly for set, I'll be using the in condition. Similarly, I'll be using the in condition for both of them. HR names dot values and then HR number. Now after that, again, I need to loop through it because I need to throw an error message. Now when I'm looping through this time, now here, I need to get the HR count. Now what is happening here, HR count, you are getting as a total because here it is storing as a multiple. Trigger.new has a list of a data. Trigger.new has a list of data. Now, do you know that which ID you are querying it here? Which ID are you querying it? Like you don't know. Most probably because this time we are doing it as an insert on a single record. You are doing a insert on single record. So now you know that. But whenever it is an insert, you will not have a ID. You will not have a ID for insert. For update, we will be having a ID. For update, there will be a ID will be there. But insert, there won't be a ID. So you don't know like which IDs you are querying it. So I think you have to write more than 23 lines of code. Instead of that, better put a SOQL query here. Now, if you still do not want it, again, you need to do the HR count here and you need to store the get here ID comma count, ID comma count. Now, when you get a ID comma count, again, you need to loop through this data. You need to loop through this data. This is not the integer. This should be a list of hiring manager, list of hiring manager. Again, you need to get the list of hiring manager, loop through the hiring manager and store that ID and the count separately. And then again, loop through this for loop. So that means you need to write a 3 times for loop. 3 times for loop. Instead of that, better, anyway, we are doing the just a count here. We are not querying any other things because it is not returning the IDs. It is not returning the IDs. So that's the reason I have written inside the for loop. But if you feel that it is causing the performance issues, then you might have to write a more than one for loops. And instead of storing into the integer, you need to store it into the list of hiring manager. Then again, you have to look through it. Any questions, any confusion in this scenario? Multiple ways of implementation is there in Salesforce. There is no, it's not a single way. It's all based on the developer, how they wanted to implement. Now let's move on. The next one is create a trigger to prevent the deletion of the related contact records upon removing the account records from the object. Now let's suppose I have an account record. I have an account record. This account record is having the ID 001223344. This is the some ID and this is the account record. And we have a rating called warm and the industry called banking. Industry called banking. Now this is the record. Similarly, on the contact, I have a record. Contact starts with 003. Now we have some number here. Now this is a contact record. And let's say the description is the test contact. And then you have a account lookup on the contact. You have a account lookup. So the account lookup is, suppose this contact is looking at the account. Now that means here I have a account ID. So this is my account ID. This contact is connected to the account ID. So by looking at this lookup field, I can think that, okay, this is a connected to the account called, this is the account record is the one. Now by looking at these IDs that I can see that, okay, these are the existing record. Now I have an existing contact. And for that existing contact, we are creating the new contact and this contact is linking to the account ID, Now the scenario here is, whenever we are deleting the account record. Whenever we are deleting the account record, related contact record should not be removed. As per the standard functionality, if I delete an account, what will happen to contact?
Contact also will be.
Contact also will be deleted. The relationship between the account and contact is a lookup relationship, but Salesforce has given the additional feature. Whenever I delete an account record, the contact records also deleted automatically. Now here, what I need is, I need to override the Salesforce standard functionality. I want to override the Salesforce standard functionality. That means whenever deleting is happening. So whenever I'm deleting the account, if the account is connected to the contact, if the account is connected to the contact, the first thing what I need to do is before deleting it. That means here the condition is the event is before delete. So before deleting it, I need to check whether there is a contact or not. If there is a contact, do not delete the account, or else I can do one more thing. What I can do is just remove the connection between the account and contact. Now, I'll not restrict them to delete the account record. What I'll do is I'll just remove the connection between the account and contact. Now we have a connection here. Account is there connected to the contact is connected to the account. Now I'll just remove the connection between these two. Before deleting the account, I'll just remove the connection of the account and that particular contact. Then I'm going to delete I'll allow the user to delete the account record. Now there is a possibility that one account has two related contacts, account 2 has one related contact. So each account might be cannot have a same related contacts, right? So few accounts has two contacts, few accounts has assume that account 3 has 6 related contacts. So that means every account has a different related contacts. Every account has different contacts. So whether it is a one contact, whether it is a multiple contacts, I should be able to handle. That means all these contact, if it is a 6 related contacts, 12 related contacts, all these contact connections should be removed to that particular account, and then we should allow them to delete it. Now this is the scenario. Now the first thing is that in order to identify this, now I'm going to delete the account. Whenever I'm deleting the account, I need to get the account ID. When I'm trying to get the account ID, for that account ID, I need to check, is there a contact or not? That means I have to query here. I have to query the data. I need to query SOQL query. I have to do it because for that ID, I need to see how many contacts are there. Now here, which trigger context do we use it? Trigger.new, trigger.old, or trigger.old map, or a trigger.new map. Which one do we use? Trigger.old or trigger.old map or trigger.new map?
Trigger.old, right?
Old.
So here, now let's go here a little bit. Now, in this scenario, I need to query the data. Query the data of contact. Query contact based on the account ID. Based on the account ID. Now for this, now definitely the event is before delete. The trigger event is before delete. So further before delete, I have to use the trigger dot old, but trigger dot old. But what is the output of trigger dot old? What is the output of trigger dot old?
IDs, IDs and objects as objects.
The
We'll
record.
get the list
Existing
of
List
records.
of aspects.
We'll get the list of records. It's not the ID. It's a list of record. So whether you take a trigger dot new or a trigger dot old, we are looping through the complete object. We are looping through the complete object. Now, if you want a trigger dot old, you can use the trigger dot old, but in this case, you need to do additional for loop. In that for loop, capture all the IDs, store that IDs into the collection, could be a set of IDs, and use that set of IDs in the SOQL query. That is one way. The second way is we already have a trigger dot old map. Trigger dot old map. Trigger dot old map contains the key and values. What is the key will be here? Key is the ID. Key is the ID. What is the values? List of the complete record information. Complete record information, which will have all the fields sits into the values. Now here trigger.old map key is already having the ID. If I already have the ID, I need not to loop through the trigger.old. So what I'll do here is, in order to do the SOQL query, select ID. I need a first name. I don't need the first name. I just need the account ID, ID comma account ID from contact, where account ID, in, I'll be using the trigger dot old map dot key set. That means I'm going to only check this. Trigger dot old map has key and value. Now, right now I'm interested only on the key. So I'll just use the trigger dot old map dot key set. Trigger dot old map dot key set. This list of contact I'll be storing into the one list. So list of contact. Let's say that contact list equal to contact list equal to complete query where condition. This is what. Now what I'll do now, I have a contact list. Now I have a contact list. So I'll look through the contact con dot con colon. Then we have a contact list. And simply I'll look to the contact and I'll say that con dot account ID equal to null. I'll remove the connection between them, then I'll say that I'm updating. So finally here, I'll say that update contact list. Update contact list. Now this is what I'm going to do right now in the trigger. Now this is on the account. Whenever we are deleting the account, then I'm going to do this. Now let me. Now I already have a trigger on this here before delete. Now we are checking the is before is delete. Is before is delete. Now here I'm checking the trigger dot old. This is the first condition. And the second condition is list of contact. Now, if you want, I can write another trigger also. If it is a confusing, let me write another trigger. File new apex trigger. Now let's say that we are preventing to delete the contact. Prevent contact deletion trigger. I'm writing on the account. Click on submit. Now it is a trigger event is before delete. Now here I'm going to check if trigger dot is before and trigger dot is delete. Trigger dot is delete. Then I'm going to check list of contact. List of contact. Let's say contact con list equal to. We have a query that we have written here. I'll copy this query. Right, so this is now. Next thing is that I'm going to check whether it is a empty or not. Contact list, is it empty or not? Is empty. Now for loop contact con, and then we are going to look through this contact list. I'll say that con dot account ID equal to none. Con dot account ID is equal to null. Then simply I'll update this. Update con list. Update con list. Let's save this. Now let's go back. Now, for example, I have an account. Let's assume that I have a support group. Support group has one contact. So what I'll do is, this is a no right now. Related list, let's open this contact. Details right now, it has a account name. What I'll do is I'll delete the contact, I'll delete the account. Clicking on delete. There is a problem of saving the record. Let me deactivate the first one. Let's go to the trigger. Edit. Click on save. Yeah, let me delete this. Yes. There is a problem of saving the record. You might not have a permission to edit, or it might be the deleted or archived contact your administrator, what it is saying. Now let's refresh the contact. Let me go to the developer console. Let's see the logs. Update failed. Okay. Contact list is filled. Now on account, before delete, contact list of contacts here. We are checking the if condition. Now let's say that update contact list, account ID equal to null. This should work. Let me refresh again. Click on delete. There is some problem. On contact, mandatory field is lead source. Okay. I have another validation. Lead source is a mandatory on the contact. So let me update this lead source. Web, click on a save. Now I'll try to delete this. Click on a delete. Now the account should be deleted. And contact we can see as it is. But account name should be null. Account name should be null. That's the same contact. Only the difference is account name is null. Now that is the scenario. Now let's see another scenario. Okay, so before moving on, any questions? Okay, homework. Create a trigger on the hiring manager object to remove all the related position record upon removing the hiring manager record from the object. So you need to write a trigger on the hiring manager object to remove all the related position record. To remove all the related position record upon removing the hiring manager. Right? So that is the homework. Now here hiring manager is a parent and then position is a child. So between this parent and child, we have a lookup relationship. For the lookup relationship, whenever we delete a parent, child records cannot be deleted. Now this scenario is, I'm giving a scenario here is whenever I delete a parent record for the lookup relationship, now all the related child records should be deleted automatically. That means you need to write a logic, even if it is a lookup relationship, you are going to delete the related child records. You need to delete the related child records. That's the homework. Now, another use case, create a trigger to synchronize the account record changes into related contact fields as below. Now, for example, I have an account record. In the account record, we have a certain fields. In the account record, we have a certain fields. Let's go here. Now, for example, this is the, let me keep it as a contact. Let's open this now here. Let's open any one of them. Okay, I'm opening this account. Now on this account, now whenever we are adding the phone number, email ID, or a fax number, or especially the billing address, whenever I'm updating in the account, the same data has to be copied to the related contact. That means I have a related contact here. This related contact should be, whenever I'm creating a contact, what it should do, while creating the contact, we specify the account here. We specify the account. Whenever we specify the account here, what should happen? The mailing address, phone number, email, the fax number should be automatically copied from the account. It should automatically copied from the account. That means we have a source field, target field. We have a source field, target field. So source field is account and the target field is contact. If account.phone, if there is a phone number here in the account and you are creating a new contact or you are updating a contact, whenever we update anything on the account, if you are updating on the account, the phone number has to be copied to the all the related contacts. Similarly, if I'm updating or creating, right? If I'm updating or deleting, whatever we are doing it, so it has to be copied to all the related contacts. Similarly, billing state should be copied to the contact billing state. Account billing city should be copied to the account billing city. Account billing state should copy to the account contact billing state. Account billing postal should be copied to the contact billing postal. Account billing country should copy to the contact billing country. So this is the requirement. So whatever we are entering here, the data has to be copied to the contact. Now in this case, we are going to write a trigger on which object do we write a trigger?
Account.
Account. And what should be the trigger event?
Update. After update.
Others, what should be the trigger event?
After insert.
Trigger event is after insert, or let's take this after update. Okay, I'm going with the only update. So let's go with the after update. So once it is after I'm updating the account details, these details should be copied to the contact. Now let's go ahead and implement the trigger. Developer console. Now we are going to write a logic. Now I think if I write it here, it will be confusing. So what I'll do is I'll simply create a new more just to be clarity on this Apex trigger. Now this time I'm writing a trigger update contact details on the account. Now here we need to use the after update. We need to use after update. Now, the first thing I need to check is I need to get the related contact based on the account ID. Get the related contacts based on the account ID. Now, which trigger context do I use it here in this case in order to get the contact based on the account ID?
New map.
Trigger dot
Trigger dot
new
new
map. We use trigger dot new map key set. So let's get list of contact con list equal to. Here I need a data, select ID. Let's take it as a phone number, fax, and I need account ID. Along with that, we need a mailing street, mailing city, mailing state, mailing country. And what else we have? Mailing. What else we have? We have taken the mailing street, city, state, country. Now we need a postal code. We need postal code, mailing postal code. Mailing postal code. Now that is the data. Do I need any other information? Street, city, state, postal code, country. Let's go back. Now let's go back. Now here, and that's it. Now we need to write where condition. Where account ID. Account ID in trigger dot new map dot key set. Key set. Now here, where condition. Next thing is that I'm going to check whether do I have a values or not. If exclamation contact list dot is empty. If it is not empty, then loop through the contact colon contact list. Now, the way of setting here, you can do it multiple ways. Method one. Now, you are looping through the contacts. You can directly say here contact.phone equal to account details are stored into the trigger.new map. So what you can do is trigger.new map dot get what you are going to get of con.account ID. That means you are going to get the values of the account ID. And out of that, I'm only interested on phone. Now, similarly, con.fax, I'm setting the account level fax. That means I need to use trigger.new map dot get con.account ID dot fax. Now, similarly, con dot mailing street equal to trigger dot new map dot get con.account ID. That means what I'm doing here dot billing street. Now, what I'm doing here is, we know that new map has a key and value. Key and value. Now, what is the key here? Key is the ID. Key is the ID. For this ID, I have a values here. For the account values, like I have a phone, fax, right? Account ID, fax, mailing address. So what are the mailing addresses there? All the fields I have. Now, trigger.newmap.con.account ID is nothing but for this specific key. For this specific key. So here, whenever I say trigger.newmap.get con.account ID. Con.account ID. That means is equal to the key. Is equal to the key. For this key, we have a ID. I'm passing a here ID. Right? So in the map, I have a list of records, multiple records are there. So here for this particular account ID, that means go to this particular ID and check what are the values are there. Out of these values, only I wanted to get the phone here. Only I wanted to get the phone. So that's what I'm doing it here. That's what I'm doing. Now, similarly, I have a mailing city. Let me copy this. Mailing city. This is a street. City equal to billing city. What is the error in fourth line? Okay, so mailing city. It's the error in fourth line. Fourth line, list of contact, con list, account ID. Oh, I have not written from. Okay. From contact where? Oh, that should be fine. Now let's include a city and let's say state. State, mailing state and billing state. And also we have a mailing postal code, billing postal code, billing postal code. And after the postal code, city, state, postal code, country, country. Right, so we are setting all the contact. This is the method one. You can do like this or else. If you do not want like this, the method two. Method two is you have a trigger.new map of contact ID. Get that and store it into the account. Store it into the account, ACC. Right, so for this contact, whatever the account ID is there, you are passing the account ID. And you are storing that account, all the fields you are storing into the single record. Now, what you can do is simply, you can say that contact phone equal to acc.home. Similarly, con.packs equal to acc.packs. acc.packs. Like this, mailing city, billing city, all of this, you can directly use it without trigger.new map because everywhere I have a trigger.new map common. So instead of using a everywhere trigger.new map, so what I can use is I can set the trigger.new map.get account ID to the single account, and that single account, from that single account, I can bring related fields which I want. Related fields which I want. Perfect. So this is how people do it. Now we have a contact list. Let's update. Update contact list. Let's save. Clear. So either you can do it step by step, or else you can store the entire values, all the values of the specific record. You can store it there. Then you can store into the single record and refer that to single record and store the data into the contact. Now let's go ahead and update. Now cancel this. Now I have a one contact inside this. So what I'll do is I'll update the fax details. Let me save. Account number AC1002. Okay, field custom field update is failed. Execution. Email field is mandatory. Update contact record details. So this is the trigger. Let's go and see. Update contact details trigger. That is the same one which we have implemented. Okay, so it is failing at the 30th line. Contact.phone. Okay, so email field is mandatory whenever there is a phone is there. So on the contact, I have a validation rule. So let's go to the contact. Validation rule. Email field is mandatory if it is a phone. Let's deactivate that. Click on save. Now I'm updating the facts. Let's click on a save. What is lead source on the contact record is mandatory. So let me update lead source. Click on save. Now I do not have a fax here. Now I'm just updating the fax on the account. Once it is updated, the fax in the account, then immediately the fax details are getting updated on the contact. I'm updated contact. Similarly, if I type a billing address, click on a save, the same details will be updated in the mailing address. Right, it is updated in the mailing address. That's about the, either you can do it this way or this way. Any questions, whatever the use cases we have discussed? Okay. So that's all for today. Let me ping you these trial heads.